control monger, but really, if your society or the neighborhood that doesn't really accept you and you feel ashamed and you stay home, then they are in control, and we don't want to give them that power over us. Like I said, this isn't a fight or a struggle, and we're not trying to control everything, but we certainly don't want their closed-mindedness to control our lives and how we feel. So we need to get out there, and whether it's volunteering your services in a soup kitchen, and there is always an available soup kitchen that would love some assistance. So there's so many things that you could do. Like this time of year, there's a lot of groups, women's groups, just charitable groups, church groups. Sometimes they get together, care packages for the men and women fighting in our armed services, and they donate their help, and people donate items, and then even they have to fill out little cards saying how grateful we are for their services this time of year. There's a lot of groups that do that, and that's a great way of staying active. Okay, so I have my scalded milk that is, perfect temperature. And I'm just going to put, let's see, how many eggs? Let's see, let's go ahead and we're just going to put, how many eggs? Well, you know it, this many eggs. Not that many eggs, this many eggs. I'm making a mess here, aren't I? So what was that? Let's see, that's 8 eggs. That should be sufficient. Like I said, you could do this without eggs, but eggs do help it out a bit. Oops. And my hands are clean, don't worry. And there we go. As well as my work surface is clean, but I will spritz it off right before we do some kneading, because I see that we have egg there. And to some, I remember when I was young, we used to crack those eggs and drink them for breakfast, before we had our jog in the morning. And that was like the big fitness thing to do. Okay, so we have our eggs here. And then to that, we're going to put our yeast mixture, our yeast and water. We've already got salt inside the flour. And then we have our scalded milk and our margarine and our sugar. Give that a little stir. I don't like margarine the way it mixes. It doesn't ever mix as well as butter does. It's not the consistency of margarine and butter. So much different. But anyways, that's what we're giving it. Now, because I do not measure anything, I might need a little water, and I might need flour, and etc. And I think that's just the way it's done. At least that's the way Roxy Rose does it. So we have our mixture, and I'm just going to kind of mix it in here. And if all my measurements were exactly right, and that I didn't put this much in when I should have put that much in, the bread should be kind of tacky. And then as we mix it here, it'll kind of come away from the sides of the bowl, and that's kind of the consistency you're looking for. So let me go ahead and do this. And this is a lot of dough to be doing. Don't try this if you're a little girl, and I'm not. Do not try this. It's quite a lot of work to knead this size of a batch. I'm going to get a little water here. Just to have, and I might need to add just a little bit of water. And again, we want to make sure that the temperature is right here. We want a lukewarm temperature. And like I said, it's pretty tough to do this big, and a lot of people will tell you don't do this big of a batch. But This is what I do. I like cooking. It's really funny. Oops, wow, what a mess. It's really funny. I am in heaven. If I have 30 or 40 people to cook for, I'm in heaven. I just, for some reason, I've always wanted to work in a restaurant, and I have always thought that, well, that's just my calling. And someday I hope to do that, really. I hope someday that I can work in a restaurant. This is my makeshift Roxy Rose Cafe, but someday there will be, trust me on this, someday there will be a real, honest-to-goodness Roxy Rose Cafe. Okay, so I don't know if you could see this. Kind of mixed. It's really wet still. We're going to have to add a little flour to it. I'm going to set this aside just for a minute, quite heavy. And I'm going to give our work area just a little clean up here. Get ourselves a new rag there. And we're going to lightly dust, give ourselves a work area of a dusted work area. Got to pull up my sleeves, get my apron on. I know my apron's a bit dirty because I do like to cook. So, let's see. The flour, once again, just all-purpose, really. Oh, I said lightly dusted. Well, we're going to put a bit of a pile to the side here, because that's what we'll kind of add flour to our dough. Be prepared. I'm making such a big batch that I need kind of a big area. Now, kneading. So that's the big mystery, kneading dough. Well, the dough needs to be kneaded. If you don't knead it enough, it will be tough. It won't develop those nice air pockets, and it will be tough. If you over knead it, it can actually be tough too. But you see this big batch of dough here? Well, trust me. Doing it by hand, there is certainly no way that anybody is going to over-knead this big batch of dough. So we're very wet here. It's very tacky, so we want to put a little flour in there. And again, this is not a cooking show. So if you find anything that I've done wrong, you in the food service now I'm just kind of, and right now it's a little tacky, it's going to stick to your fingers, it's going to be a bit uncomfortable, but just bear with it for a minute until it finally starts to take shape. And I'll probably cut out a little of the kneading process. But what I like to do is, and I'll show you the process of kneading in just a minute, I like to knead it 100 times. And I haven't started kneading yet. And there's some people suggest, let it rest, and they treat it almost like a baby being born, which, if you care that much about your bread, then so be it. So I'm just kind of getting a feel for it, and I know that I'm going to need a little more flour here. So let me just rinse my hands. It is quite a messy job when you're in the process of it. So I need a little more flour here. So, and we want to put about that much, not this much, but that much, okay? So got to remember all the this much and that much is because you You certainly don't want to be putting that much in when you should be putting this much in. Okay, so now, like I said, this is a very big batch of dough. And what the kneading process is pulling over one corner of a round ball, pushing it in, okay, giving it a quarter turn. I'm making a mess, but that's okay, because, you know, I don't mind messes in my kitchen. In fact, the messier my kitchen is, it means the more fun I've had in my kitchen. So what we're doing is turning it a quarter turn and pulling one corner of that round ball. Yes, I know, corner in a round ball. And then giving it another turn and folding that over, okay? And it will, right now it's a little bit sloppy, still a little tacky, but it's going to get better in just a minute. And keep some flour around, not only to keep it from sticking to the table, but also so that you can continue to add to the mixture. And trust me, it's better to add flour than to have too dry of a mixture and then try adding water to it. It just doesn't work. You'll just end up with dry bread, and that's not good. Because actually you want it kind of a very moist bread, and if it's dry, it's going to be too tough, and it won't rise, and be too tough to work with too. So like I said, I knead it 100 times this way. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to sprinkle it with a little cinnamon, and just so that the cinnamon kind of gets around inside the dough. Not much, because really the cinnamon part comes later. But I'm going to just spritz it with a little cinnamon. And at this time I'm going to give it some raisins and kind of work those into the dough. Like I said, some people like to put the raisins in sooner. I kind of just like to do it this way. They'll kind of get distributed as it goes along, and they'll get worked through the dough, as you'll see. And any ones that fall out, you know, you could just kind of toss right in there. And later on, we'll be adding, as we roll the dough, after it's finished rising, we'll be adding more cinnamon, sugar, and raisins. So that's not all the cinnamon and raisins that's going to get put into our dough. So I am going to stop the video here, because basically, like I said, you're going to do this kneading, and you're going to do it 100 times. And then you're going to go wash your bowl, that big bowl that I had. I'm going to go wash it with nice warm water so that the bowl is nice and warm to accept the dough after I finish kneading it. And then I will knead it right before I put it in the bowl. I'm going to knead it 100 more times, okay? So that will complete the kneading process. So basically, I'm going to give it 200 folds like I'm doing here. It's a lot of work, and I'm out of breath, but it's really for a good cause. And it's fun. Like I said, I find making bread extremely therapeutic. Right now, I'm a little torn and distracted because I'm trying to be somewhat entertaining to you at the same time that I'm trying to really accomplish a very difficult task. So this has been Roxy Rose, and I'll be back in just a minute to show you the dough after it's finished kneading. And again, I'm just trying to help out, kind of making it a little entertaining, giving you some ideas of what you could do during the holidays to stay busy, give of yourself. And I'll be back in just a minute to show you the finished product.